Now, in Australia, a new report is due to be handed down into the spread and threat of one of the world's most invasive species, fire ants. The ants are thought to have entered the country in shipping containers from South America about 2 decades ago. They pose a threat to people and livestock. Well, joining me now is Professor Helen Roy, who is an ecologist at the UK Centre for Ecology and Hydrology. Just explain to our viewers, what are fire ants and why are they so dangerous?
Thank you. So fire ants are small insects, and the red imported fire ant originates in South America. And it is a species that's been spread around the world in a variety of different ways, but particularly can be found in soil, for instance. It's imported in one way or another. And these quite tiny ants can form quite large colonies, and they are omnivores. That is, they eat a lot of different things. And particularly they will prey on, for example, seabirds or turtlings, which are of particular concern in some regions, but also a whole variety of other insects. So they can really change the communities of species that might be in a particular area, but they also make changes to the soil ecosystems too, and they have a very painful sting, so humans can also be affected.
And in Australians' terms, they cost a lot of money. I'm reading 22 billion by the 2040s in trying to combat them.
Yes, that's right. So it's really important with any of these so-called invasive alien species that are species that have been moved from one part of the world to another by human activities, and then they go on to have some kind of impact. The most important thing to do is to prevent their arrival in the first place. But once they do arrive, management is really expensive, but actually the cost of inaction is even greater.
So what are the options that are available to tackle them? And Australia obviously spending a lot of money on it, but how can they seem so small and so innocent, and but in fact they're causing all this devastation.
So one of the advantages is that because they have nests, so it means that you can control quite a large number of them. So there are a variety of different treatment options. Some of the treatments involve sterilizing the queen, for instance, which essentially then kills the colony. But there can be other ways in which they can be controlled through sort of baiting, so the ants take back these toxic baits to the nest. But I think it's really important that people are aware of these threats to biodiversity, these invasive alien species, and they play an important part in terms of surveillance and monitoring, keeping a lookout and reporting any sightings that they have as quickly as possible, because any action, if it can take place as quickly as possible, then it's going to be more effective than if the insects are left to spread and to establish.
And briefly, does global warming contribute to this? Are they more likely to spread because of the warming climate?
Certainly, particularly insects, they will benefit, many of them will benefit from a warming climate. And for example, in the UK, as the temperatures are warming, we're expecting more of these insects could thrive in the UK, where previously they would not have been able to flourish because the conditions just wouldn't have been right. They can also change their behavior a little bit when the climate changes. So, for example, drought conditions can make them go more deep into the soil and make them more difficult to control. Interaction with climate change is really important.
OK, Helen Roy, ecologist at the UK Centre for Ecology and Hydrology.